everybody, and welcome to the latest established online event. I'm Frank Gruber.
And I'm Jen Consalvo, and we're the co-CEOs of Established. Thanks so much for being here today. We know it continues to be a challenging time for startups to survive and thrive, and we're here to support our community in any way we can.
We continue to offer opportunities for startup founders to learn and engage, and to find business partnerships and customers and funding to be successful. Our series of online events are designed to help startups build the bridges they need to make as many valuable connections as possible.
Yes, and that's why we are here today. We want to bring you a special event that was supposed to happen back in March at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. But as we all know, due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, we're bringing it to you now from our homes. For those of you who are new here, here's a quick clip to provide some context on who we are and what Established and Startup of the Year are all about.
Can't wait to see it.
Roll it.
Established is a consultancy that helps organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies. We act as a force multiplier, giving our clients the ability to go above and beyond to accomplish greater goals than they would alone. Our mission is to, wherever and whenever possible, discover, promote, foster, connect, build, and/or fund innovation that can change the world for the better. We help companies, organizations, and cities to develop, create, and execute successful strategies. The team at Established has been working in the startup ecosystem and innovation space for almost 2 decades. One of the things that has put Established on the map is our ecosystem strategy and the events and experiences associated with helping clients bolster their ecosystem exposure. Some of the various methods by which we provide exposure are our podcasts, virtual events, blogs, social media strategy and execution, and our daily Dealflow newsletter, which continues to grow and currently reaches over 74,000 recipients. Established also produces and promotes events on behalf of our partners and clients. Additionally, one of the programs we've been working on the longest is our Startup of the Year program, a year-long program that searches the country for a geographically diverse set of startups from all backgrounds, pulling them together to compete for the title of Startup of the Year. The program includes a number of in-person and virtual events, including our annual South by Southwest Startup Pitch event and competition, all of which culminate at our annual Startup of the Year Summit, where the Startup of the Year winner is announced, along with an opportunity at potential investment through our investment arm called Established Ventures. Much of our work, though, is helping to provide startups with a connective tissue to help them be successful. We partner with investors and other organizations in ecosystems around the country, and in doing so, provide opportunities to startups with those various partners. Established also works with clients on branding, communication strategy, digital agency services and development, and more. With some of our clients, such as AFWorks and the NASA iTech program, we assist with research and development by fostering ecosystem connections, communication strategies, and startup sourcing to engage the startup community and solve some of the problems facing their organizations. So Established is here to help you find and source innovations that will help you meet your goals faster. Connect with us today to learn more.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that video. It gives you a great overview of what we've been up to here at Established and Startup of the Year. And speaking of Startup of the Year, we're currently accepting applications for our 2020 program, which will culminate on November 9th and 10th at our 8th annual Startup of the Year Summit. Can you believe it? 8 years?
No, time flies.
Time flies. At that event, we'll have 100 startups, amazing startups, competing for the grand title of Startup of the Year, and as well as $20,000 in potential investment from Established Ventures, and lots of other prizes. They'll make connections. It's going to be a great event. So if you're interested in applying, go to startupofyear.com.
And this year we have a special category that we're really excited about. We've partnered with .us, so the domain like zoom.us or established.us, to honor United States veteran founders through the .us Veteran Startup of the Year. This is a category within the overall competition that will have its own $10,000 non-dilutive cash prize. So apply now for that opportunity. And to support that, we're hosting an online pitch event sponsored by .us on July 23rd. So we hope you'll join us for that.
Now let's get to the program. Join us here today with our great panel of amazing people talking about startups and government compatible at last. It's going to be led by Rich Malloy, VP of Engagement at Established. He'll be joined by Kira Blackwell from NASA iTech, Joey Aurora from AFWorks AF Ventures, and Samantha Snaves from Re3D, our 2019 Startup of the Year winner as well. So let's kick it over to Rich Malloy. Take it away, Rich.
All right. Thank you, Frank and Jen. And we're excited to get started today. Again, my name is Rich Malloy. I'm the Vice President of Engagement here at Established, and I will be your moderator today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're excited to get rolling. We will be taking questions from the audience for this panel. This panel was originally supposed to happen during South by Southwest. And so if you are watching live on YouTube, be sure to type your questions in the chat, and we will get those questions to our amazing panelists. But let's get started and introduce the panel that we have here today. So I'd like to start by introducing Kira Blackwell. Kira is a program executive at NASA within the Space Technology Mission Directorate Office. She has a strong business acumen in aerospace, biotechnology, and technology management. The NASA iTech program was born out of Kira's vision for an innovative program within NASA to strategically identify entrepreneurs developing cutting-edge technologies. Hi, Kira. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys inviting me and hosting us to be on this call. This is great.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's wonderful. Next, I'd like to introduce Joey Aurora. Joey is a co-founder and partner at AF Ventures and AFWorks. Joey's bringing together the DoD and startup companies for national security imperatives. As a partner at AF Ventures, he is responsible for shaping the strategy around how the Air Force invests in small businesses. Hi, Joey. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here, and great with an awesome team of panelists.
Yeah, always good to have you. And lastly, we have Samantha Snabs, co-founder of Re3D, a bootstrapped social enterprise that manufactures Gigabot, the world's largest industrial 3D printer for under $9,000, that now can print directly from shredded plastic waste. That's pretty cool. Re3D has customers in 50 plus countries and has won numerous startup awards, including being named 2019's Startup of the Year by the Established team and our panel of judges from last year. Sam is also a captain in the Air National Guard, and I believe Sam, your call sign is also NASA, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. That's what some people call me.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us today, Sam. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honor. We're big fans of Startup of the Year and Established, as well as AFWorks and NASA. And I'm thrilled to join the conversation.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So, Established has the honor of working with both AFWorks and the NASA iTech program. And of course, we just mentioned that Re3D, has was the Startup of the Year for 2019. And Re3D has also won SBIR contracts through AFWorks and was a finalist in the NASA iTech program. It's just worlds colliding here on the screen today. And so we all know each other. We all know the wonderful work that we get to do. But you all don't know all of us or the wonderful work that's happening here from these programs. So let's actually start by kicking it over to Kira and Joey to hear about each of their programs. So Kira, can you tell us about NASA iTech, please?
Sure. So I was recruited by NASA actually almost 5 years ago to develop a program that could work with entrepreneurs and investors. And if you're familiar with government work, you have sort of a typical entrepreneurs that work in the universities and things like that go through our SBIR programs and things like that. But it's a different population of entrepreneurs that NASA was trying to reach, sort of those that move very quickly and are developing the disruptive things. And then we wanted to find a way in which we could actually integrate investors so that we would have the technology moving forward fastly. So we search for entrepreneurs that are developing technologies that have both a space, or I can't just say space because we do cover aeronautics as well, but a NASA application as well as an Earth application that is not, specifically targeted for NASA. So finding those entrepreneurs, and then we bring in investors that will actually help those companies move the technology forward. The goal is that the entrepreneurs aren't going to just win a contract with NASA. The goal for us is to actually give them a platform to talk about their technology, bring in investors, move it forward, work with our chief technologists so we can see where that technology can be infused within NASA, and we could either buy it as a service or a capability as they continue to move it in the commercial market. And so it's been pretty successful in about 3.5 years that it took me to stand it up within the government, completely brand new, roll it out. Well, it took 6 months, and then roll it out. In all 3.5 years, they've those companies have actually been able to leverage over $500 million in private investment dollars.
That's amazing.
Billion. Yeah. So they've moved forward, and I keep a real close contact with all those entrepreneurs that have been part of the top or the finalists and stuff, and help them make connections either with each other or other government agencies, as well as other investors and things like that. So it's pretty incredible to see. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
The thing that I love is the technical validation, right?
Yep.
Because it's so hard if you don't have the expertise in, I'd say wound care, or, in biomedicine, or in space technology and space tugs, and, or whatever the case may be. I mean, the varied applications that come through, it's great to get that validation, which is one of the things that I think that sort of are able to get through the iTech program.
Correct. Yes.
Super important.
We have a chief technologist at every field center. NASA has 10 throughout the United States. And so our chief technologists work with them very closely to help them identify how that technology can actually be infused within the agency, and sort of what the requirements would be, or what we would need, certain temperatures for the technology to work within, things like that. So I think it's useful for them.
Excellent. Excellent. Very cool. Thank you. And Joey, would you tell us about AFWorks?
Yeah, AFWorks got started to help transform the culture of the Air Force, and also take the lessons learned from Kira and team and other folks around the DoD and federal space about how can we best work with commercial companies. So AFWorks' mission is to connect innovators and accelerate results for Air Force culture and technology agility. And so over the past 3 years now, got founded in 2017. We've worked with over 1,400 companies. 64% of those are first-time entrants into the DoD space. And we've awarded over $250 million of government contracts, and leveraged $1 billion as well for private capital. And what we're seeing there is the key thing we're trying to address is dual-use companies. So companies that both have a commercial market and their technology product or service can apply to be used within the Air Force. We've found tremendous success in that. We have over 450 prototype projects going on. These are contracts from anywhere from $1 to $1.5 million. And they're working with airmen to solve the problems they face on a day-to-day basis. And out of those, we have tons of those companies scaling their solutions inside of the government. They've found their fit, their niche of what problem they're solving, and they're transitioning to being programs of record. So our goal is really to connect small businesses through our challenge process, SBR, STTR process, our CSOs, to airmen problem sets, because we recognize that almost 98% of our problems, the majority of them, can be solved with commercial technology. And we want to integrate those into the way the Air Force does business.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's a fast contracting mechanism. I think that you are able to take the SBIR program that all agencies, that all branches and divisions of the government and the DoD can take advantage of, but create your own flavor of it to make this fast contracting mechanism. So,
yeah, and it's absolutely a team effort between the SBIR program, AFWorks, AQ. Our goal is to actually allow these agencies and people inside of the Air Force to do their own contracting, to learn this process so they can own it. Because one of the key things is AFWorks doesn't want to be the organization that's doing this work, because that's going to create a bottleneck. We have to transform the way everybody does work inside of the Air Force.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big vision. That's fantastic.
And I think it's even, if I can add, I think it's bigger than just the Air Force. I think actually all government agencies would benefit from engaging with startup companies like SAM's, that's doing things that can be beneficial to both, the government agency as well as, our economy, the communities we live in. So, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And so great transition. So Sam, tell us a little bit more about Re3D and your experience with both organizations.
Sure. So Re3D is a spinoff of Engineers Without Borders, NASA Johnson Space Center in 2013. We had the vision to make these big, affordable 3D printers that someday could be powered by plastic waste as another way to make this technology more accessible for new job creation. But as many of you might be quick to point out, 3D printing has been around for a while, but it's the technology is still evolving and it still has a long ways to go. When you are running a factory and you're manufacturing in America, which is not as common, and you have a hardware startup as a social enterprise, the odds are against you, and it also puts you in a position where fundraising is often just not a good solution, or you're not a good candidate for it. So when we wanted to start to take our portfolio that we sell in 54 countries and modify it to have this ability to print from shredded waste, we had to get really creative in how we were going to finance that. And so we were looking at non-dilutive opportunities. Also, when you think about printing from trash and printing functional things, large things, and transforming municipalities, there's an industry play, and you intersect with a lot of government agencies. But again, being that small startup, manufacturing in America, open source social enterprise, having those, most people just don't have those connections out of the gate. So we relied really heavily on pitch competitions. It's just a way to have a voice, and more importantly, to build connections. So, for instance, we had the honor of participating in NASA iTech at CES this year. And while we are a spinoff of NASA, and NASA multiple campuses have our platform, we know very little about what we do because NASA can't advocate for a company.
Correct.
And we're not able to highlight those stories. We can't do the videos and the cool blogs like we can do in other entities. And so iTech was great because there at that event, we got to meet with the deputy press secretary and talk to her about how can we break down this barrier? How can our small company showcase our customer stories so we can leverage that for contracts? We had the opportunity to meet with all these CTOs who gave us great feedback and helped us inform how our technology could be better. And then more importantly, it gave us an excuse. So I was shamelessly tweeting the chief sustainability officer of Johnson Space Center, and I'm like, hey, I'm across the street. I'm an iTech finalist. And because of that, I was like, can you share these numbers on your waste problem? And can I chat with you about your garbage? So after iTech, although we didn't win, we're still crossing our fingers we might make it to the forum. We had the opportunity. Yeah, that's my shameless hustle to start it. We had the opportunity to go across the street and give a lunch and learn about waste, and just to pick the brains of people on campus. No contract, but it was just a great vehicle to learn about what we could make from their own trash. And that's translated into a lot of dialogue back and forth. Again, not even winning the contract is always the biggest prize. It's just having that excuse to chat. The same with AFWorks. Being a reservist, I recuse myself on the team of directly interfacing and recruiting customers, and our team is not fluent in that. But what's cool about AFWorks is you have the ability in the SBIR project to actually get a memorandum of understanding from someone, all the way down to enlisted ranks or at the squadron level, who says, yeah, that's a really cool technology and I can use it. And then they, in that program, you are creating something that they're going to use, and you can share it freely. And I don't think there's ever been any other mechanism where you can just directly connect with a warfighter and point to that use case. And it's a contracting vehicle that more people can add dollars to. So we've used the SBIR we have through the Air Force to make this a taller version of our printer. Again, we don't have the excess capacity to do R&D without the support. So we made what's called Exabot. It's coming out. It's 6 feet tall, and we're printing these virtual training aids. So it turns out the Air Force, when they're doing training, sometimes the objects are too heavy or they can't be moved around. So they have an opportunity now to print really big things that they can pair with another civil company through VR to better learn about their own system. So that's open now 2 contracting opportunities for us. One, to make these huge training aids, and another to sell 6 foot tall printers now on contract, and we can put on schedule with GSA.
That's fantastic. And you bring up, so you talking about contracting, I think brings up an interesting point, right? And I heard a great quote the other day that you need 2 things to work with the government. You need a contract and you need funding. And when you work with an enterprise, with a private enterprise, it's just assumed that those are going to go hand in hand, right? As soon as you get the funding, you're going to get the contract. You work through contract. The contract just happens, with the legal department after everything else has been decided. But that's not really how it works with government, right? Is that you could have one without the other, and either one, right? So, I'd love to dig in on that a little bit, Joey. I mean, could you talk a little bit about contracts and funding and, aligning those resources?
Yeah, it's absolutely a problem that we are looking to address, and something that the way our government is built is to separate our funding cycles year over year, right? That we have to go to Congress, get a budget approved, and then it's usually allocated down to the thousands of dollars to specific projects and programs. And when you're trying to sell the government, you have to unlock and figure out, hey, who has excess budget that is willing and interested in this problem, and they have to be able to set that aside, and you have to make sure you're within that fiscal year, because unlike a lot of companies, right, our money also expires in a specific time period that if we don't spend it in time, it just sort of goes away and goes somewhere else. And Kira, please feel free to jump in if you have comments.
Well, I was going to say there is legislation in place that's been in place since like the 70s. And updated again in the 80s. It's called the Stevenson-Wilder Act. So that money doesn't expire. And it's money where a government agency, including probably AFWorks, you guys can go out and actually recruit organizations to actually share in the cost. So investors could share in the cost. It goes in a special pot for the development of specific technologies. And so and the beauty of that under the Stevenson-Wilder Act is actually you're restricted as a government agency from taking any of the intellectual property by investing into the technology. And so it was developed like years ago, and it's not as widely used as I think it should be. So for this next year, that's what we plan on doing, is integrating that into our program, is where we'll be able to fund it, can't touch the IP. And then I already have lined up investors that are really willing to match what NASA puts in. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's sort of a matching fund program. So, but he's right. It does expire if you use it or you lose it. And so the problem with technology is when you're testing technology, you have this idea of how it's going to work within a system. Scheduling for a demonstration, a flight demonstration or something like that takes time out. So if you set aside money, you have to actually be able to plan very accurately to do a flight demonstration. Maybe we want to run the science on the International Space Station. And so you've got to get on a payload somewhere in a schedule that are currently about 2 years behind right now. So, when you have money that's going to expire, you have to be able to plan that out very strategically so that those payloads can go at the time that you have the scheduled payload, assuming that every flight goes on time and on schedule. So seriously, no. So those are things you have to, that you have to think of whenever you're looking at funding the development of technologies. Yeah.
Very important considerations. And Kira, real quick, what was the name of that act again?
Stevenson-Wilder Act.
Stevenson-Wilder. Excellent.
And this is a great example of where we're still even learning. The government is a massive behemoth of regulations.
Right. That's the problem. It's so big that you don't, I made the discovery, but really I didn't make the discovery myself. Somebody else did, but I found that it was someone within our own organization worked for a year to work with our general counsel to get everything lined out so that we could integrate that and start using it. And so we have a program that does that currently, but they have very specific challenges. And so it's called our prizes and challenges, but other government agencies do use it. They just don't. I think actually it's the umbrella that In-Q-Tel operates under.
I was wondering. Yeah.
It is. It's the same legislation that they use to be able to operate In-Q-Tel.
So for any of the startups out there, In-Q-Tel is another resource for you if you're looking for that investment layer. A spin-off of a government agency, and if they have vested interest in your technology, they come in as a venture partner.
Well, see, the whole reason why I wanted to start NASA iTech seriously within the agency is because I was an entrepreneur, and so running a company, I would like Sam said, I wanted non-dilutive funds, right? So I wanted something that I didn't have to give up.
Money, if anyone's listening, free money.
Well, it doesn't take your IP. It doesn't touch your IP. It doesn't own an equity in your company, because by the time you get to the technology where you're actually looking at major investors, that's really a critical thing for them. You need to be able to have some leverage, right, with your equity stake, right? So you need to be able to have that leverage. If you've given it all away just for the development stage, you're going to have a hard time getting investors, because there's nothing that they can gain from it. And so it's sort of this delicate balance, as an entrepreneur. And so what I did was I did a lot of research on our SBIR programs, the other, another contract mechanism. I met with a lot of our contractors and found that this was a major issue for them, right? Like, when I say I met with major contractors, like well-known major contractors for the government, that said, this is a problem for us. And so I said, well, how can I make this work so that I can still give them something, allow the entrepreneur to benefit, to be a part of this, but it also allow the opportunity for investors to come in, so that that company that's developing the technology, they don't lose out on their equity in the early stages as they're doing the development. Like, they're able to actually develop it to the stage to get it to the point where, like, ultimately they can actually impact the world, like Sam's trying to do. I mean, she's not doing it to, I'm sure, to have a big a home and a big, a fancy car and blah, blah, blah. She's doing it to change the world. And so, and I know that about this generation of entrepreneurs. And so I'm like, how can I help them or enable them to change the world, and help them be in a position so that when they get to the point where they're going to need a major investor to bring them through the finish line, right? What can I do to help them? And so the only thing I could do was what I've done with iTech. And so then after about 2 years, I discovered there's this Stevenson-Wilder Act, and it was really pretty cool. And I was like, okay, so how do I do this? Well, then I developed a funding mechanism, sort of a plan, which hadn't been developed, and how we could do that and bringing in investors and stuff. And so that's what I plan to implement this last year.
Yeah, boy, there's so much to unpack there. Holy cow! One of the about the IP, about the non-dilutive funding, about the processes, right? I mean, the perception, generally speaking, the perception in the startup community in the past has been, don't bother working with government, right? What are all of these things and all these programs, right? And the startup community has created its own little pathways of send a pitch deck and send it out to your contacts and get, and here's the funding process and here's the accelerator process. And so, I'd love, Kira, I've heard about the progress that you're making with NASA, and about the way that you utilize the program not only to make connections, but now to provide funding opportunities as well. Joey, let's talk a little bit about the AFWorks side of that, and then let's get the entrepreneur's perspective after that. So,
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the pathways here, Joey, and how you've been able to adapt to the way that startups are used to working while still being able to operate as a government entity, which you've got definitely have some restrictions around.
Yeah, one of the key things we wanted to do was to streamline that application process and then the award notification process. So, for example, for the SBIR application for phase one, it's a 5-page paper and a 15-page slide deck, where we're taking a lot of the same information that might be included in a normal pitch deck and adding in some components about, hey, who might be your Air Force customer? As you would try to figure out who your target market is in the commercial world, we're also asking you to take a look at that inside of the Air Force. And, we still want some of those technical details. We want to understand that you're not just sprinkling fairy dust, but you actually have the technical viability to create a 6-foot exabot, right? Because you've built a gigabot, right? Of the ability to do those things, we want that technical understanding in a 5-page paper, 15-page slide deck for that phase one process. And that's a $50,000 contract to discover and figure out who your Air Force customer might be. It's a feasibility study we want the startups to do. And we've made it so that our turnaround time for reviewing those and then putting a company on contract is about 30 to 60 days, so that companies can hear about their proposal really quickly. And then we go into phase two, which is anywhere from $750,000 to $1.5 million. And that's a 15-page paper, 15-page slide deck, as well as the MOU that Sam was talking about. And the cool part of that process is you're figuring out who your Air Force customer is, you're deep diving into what your prototype project you're working on, and you're going to get notified of those things within about 60 to 90 days, which allows us the time to do the reviews and then work to get that company on contract as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that. I mean, absolutely love that. Established, I think it's also worth disclosing that Established is not only helping startups engage with both AFWorks and iTech, but we're eating our own dog food, as the saying goes, and work with AFWorks on we've gone through the process of a phase 1 and a phase 2, and currently on a phase 2. And it was, the turnaround was really fast, and the contracting was, it was like a negotiation to figure out what's the right customer and what's the right fit, and to go through that whole process. So it was not unlike working with an enterprise in that regard. But Sam, let's get the entrepreneur's perspective. I mean, tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly here.
Well, studying. No, yeah, I think what it's interesting. Being 7 years old now and perpetually hustling with a bootstrap company, we've been exposed to a number of really amazing innovators in the government and in big companies. Sometimes they have similar problems too, who are trying to break down these walls so we can make a better society. And I can't give enough credit to everything that Kira and Joey are doing, because they really slay dragons every day, and they're entrepreneurs themselves in trying to make this happen. But I think full disclosure, I think it's always good for the startups to realize that there are a lot of different non-traditional customers out there that maybe most startups would write off that now want to work with startups and have vehicles like NASA, which is awesome, and has a culture of safety. So there's just a lot of protocol, and like the Air Force, and they're all a little bit different too. They've had to work through their own culture and legal constraints and needs to have these vehicles. So I think it's good for startups, and the startups that we mentor, we encourage them to think of them as like different tools in your toolkit. What's cool about government entities is you can really use it as a way to kind of do market discovery. So I would say look at an agency and think, not only when you look at NASA, think about astronauts, but think about the terrestrial benefits that we gain on Earth, and think about aeronautics and all the different skill sets and markets that NASA encompasses as you do your targeting. And the same for the Air Force and the other customers. So that being said, some of these programs are very new, and I suspect Kira and Joey have stories of where things, maybe they've had to pivot and how they do things or be flexible. And so the startups have to remember to keep that flexibility too. So for instance, AFWorks, I think is the word's gotten out that it's like the best deal in the market for startups to quickly prototype with a DoD customer. But and they've done a ton of awards very quickly, and each cycle changes a little bit. And they had a cycle that was recently canceled, and some startups were upset because they were really intending to apply. But at the end of the day, if you're a startup, and especially now in a recession in today's environment, you can't build your whole company around just hoping that these things work out. So I would say focus on your commercial glide path, those external opportunities, and then also use these vehicles when they're available to try and explore opportunities within the government. So I think that's a thing sometimes that startups fail to do. The other interesting thing is, having sold a company previously, and just watching a lot of our friends fundraise in today's environment, there's a lot of work that goes into fundraising or selling a company. But I'm really impressed that so many companies, even ones we mentor, will say, I don't know if I want to try and work with the government or put together the 15-page paper, because it just seems like a lot of work and a lot of risk, and I might get rejected. And I think, have you fundraised before? Because that's a lot of work too when you're using the same vehicles. So, this at the end of the day is not just the free money, but also it's a contract, and that contract will let you, or myself as a CEO, if you have that contract, you can take out a loan against it. That's an asset. That's a validator. So the intrinsic benefit is even so much bigger than the cash award. So, I think there's sometimes just a lot of intimidation, I guess, around working with the government still. So send me an email. I'm Samantha@re3d.org. Bug Rich and Establish. Call up Joey or Kira. We want to help you be successful and just see all these tools as different opportunities. One last caveat while I'm monopolizing the time is, we got 1.5 million over the course of the phase 2 and some supplements through the National Science Foundation, which really catalyzed this ability to print from trash and the associated technology. And in their process, their phase 2, I think I had submitted over 80 pages of documentation. It was a much slower process.
Wow.
That being said, it's a very established infrastructure, and their focus is more on the true research. They want to make sure you don't have that product done because they want a hand in helping you benefit society.
Right.
The Air Force is kind of on the opposite end. They're expecting you to find a customer, and you're still Googling like how to spell Air Force, and if there's a space between the R and the F, and they expect you to be very far along. And when they say prototyping, it's really taking your commercial product and then seeing if the DoD customer is aligned with it and making those little adjustments. So I would think about that as more of like a selling vehicle, if you will. I don't know if you would agree, Joey, but there's just different flavors.
Yeah, and our efforts, the SIBR program, are primarily R&D based, and we have other vehicles through the challenge process and through our commercial solutions openings that I would say fall more into line with what Sam was describing, because we do want to find those best commercial products and include them into the microelectronics challenge or the space challenge we've been doing. And Sam, I also want to address one of the other comments you said, right? AFWERX is always iterating. We're always taking feedback, and we're not perfect because we have a lot of internal cultural fights to keep going through and red tape to work through. And it's a challenge that we're slaying those dragons each day. We're fighting them. Sometimes they burn us a little bit, but what we want to do is we want to hear the feedback from the startups. We did just do our $20 round, and we had hundreds of companies apply, the largest ever for directive phase 2s, and we had a very small selection rate. And that, how do we communicate that out? How do we build that trust with the startup community that says, hey, we only have X amount of funding each round, and we're not going to be able to fund the hundreds of proposals we get through, but we do appreciate you working to find a customer, working to get engaged. And then at the same time, we have to deal with the government customers. So like, well, I thought we were ready. We checked all the boxes, but at the same time, we have to learn how to better communicate those things. So one thing I want to reiterate for everyone is that we know that 20.2 round got canceled, and we apologize for that. That was a lot of thrash and a lot of expectation for that coming out. But the 20.3 round is going to happen this fall. And we're prepping our resources, taking our lessons learned, and internally we're scaling our team, aligning our resources so that we can respond to the startup community.
And I'll just highlight that Kira, you talked about this as well, and I'll let you jump on this, but both of you have talked about how you are iterating and changing your programs, and we see this on a day-to-day basis. It's really amazing that you're able to do that. You just don't think, sitting outside of the government, you don't think about the government as iterating on its processes, but it's something that you've been doing. So, Kira,
well,
please.
And what I was going to say is, we do face a lot of, slay the dragons, but I guess I never look at it like that. I look at it as though, we have an established organization, right? A federal agency. And so we're coming in with something disruptive because we believe, like I believe you probably do too, Joey, we believe that it'll benefit the agency long-term and it'll be mutually beneficial to society when that person takes that technology and moves it forward. And so within the agency, to be quite honest, it took me 6 months to roll out a brand new program. They told me it was going to take me 2 years. I worked with general counsel, and in 6 months, general counsel gave their blessing and said, you know what? Okay, this is how it can work. And at one point, years ago, before I came to NASA, years ago, I would hear these things about how horrible this is and blah, 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 blah. One of the attorneys said to me one day, Kira, look, it's not that we don't want this to be successful. He said, it's just that as general counsel, it's our job to make sure that you're not put, or you don't put the agency in a compromising position. And it's their job to understand the laws or the rules or the policies or whatever. And so the reason why it's constantly changing is because we end up having, we tried something new, and then it's like, oh, well, only this part of it worked. Well, then we have to go back, Joey and I have to go back to our own agency to make sure, in order to change it a little bit, to make it work for the entrepreneur as well as for the agency, let's see how we can do this without ending up in an orange suit or a striped suit or whatever the new color is, right? So we have to go back to them. And here's what I've experienced is what's been great is the attorneys may say no initially, like, no, that's not going to work. But I'm always given the opportunity to say to them, what can I do to make it work? What do I have to change in this to make it work? And they'll tell me. They just don't want us to get the agency in trouble or like myself in trouble. And so although it's different, it is shocking an entire culture as well. Like people that have done things for like 40 years, they've done it this way. And so that's a little bit disruptive as well. So, but it's not like we'll get there. And I think that I think all these government agencies that are doing it, don't give up on us as entrepreneurs. Don't give up on us, because we're fighting this battle, because not just for you today, but for the future entrepreneurs that are developing amazing technologies that are going to change the world. And so as we're all working in a similar direction, because we realize we need you guys just like you need us, right? You might need some of the funding to get to this next level, right? In order to get to the point where you can get investment. But we need you guys and your brilliance and your technologies so that we can actually move our missions forward and accomplish our jobs. So, I mean, if we can work together cohesively down the road, finding those ways to do that and uncovering a new policy, or not a new policy, but an old policy that we could adopt, all to benefit all of us in the end is, I mean, to me, that's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, you know, Carrie, you hit on a really, really important part that that I really want to dig in on, and and that is the civil military fusion and how critical this is, right? So it's not only important because it's a great opportunity for the startup to continue to build and develop their technology, but it's a great opportunity, but it also is part of what is going to keep America safe and keep America and independent.
Yeah.
Joe, I'd love to hear your take on that for the civil military fusion.
Yeah, and Carrie, you said it perfectly, right? There has to be a synergy between the citizens and government, right? Your perception that you mentioned of government moves slowly, it's important for the stability of our country that the government, it takes time to understand how its policies are going to affect its constituents. But at the same time, we have the ability to iterate really quickly on serving our citizens and designing how we can best respond to their needs, incorporate new technology into the way we do business. Because in order to build and continuously change and shift how government operates, we have to match the speed and pace of society as well. And so what I think we're coming to is a point where our US government has to iterate to match the speed at which things are changing on the commercial side. And in order to do that, we need to partner with the commercial sector and those companies and citizens to do so, because we're going to build our future together. And when we build that together, we'll be stronger.
And I feel privileged to work for an agency that's willing to say, okay, Kira, we'll let you try that. Like, to me, that's an honor, because not every agency, every federal agency isn't there yet. But when you look at the Air Force, the fact that they're willing, they're not there yet. Neither are we. But the thing is we're willing and we're taking steps in that direction. So when I said don't give up on us, that's what I meant. Like, don't give up on us, because we work for agencies that are actually open to those kind of changes. And they're open to it. Hey, yeah, try it. But they're supporting us as we're moving it forward. So I think it's an exciting time to be an entrepreneur, because you do have the ability to leverage at least the agencies that are moving in that direction. But I think in the future, we'll see more agencies that'll follow suit once we have it all ironed out, Joey.
Keep working with GC to make that happen, right?
Definitely.
GC being general counsel?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I just have to say that I couldn't do it without, like, early on, we brought in Established. It might not have been called Established at the time, but we brought in Established, and it was new for them as well as for us, right? But I knew what we needed, because one, I had been an entrepreneur, but two, I had was an entrepreneur, but I had also worked at an accelerator. And so we need those organizations that have been working with the entrepreneurs for years, who had credibility and who had established that, to one, help us as a government entity sort of work through this as all these changes are taking place. And so, for us, like, without having the partners like established, that collaborate with us as we're doing it, we wouldn't have been able to achieve what we've achieved as well. So
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just thought I had to share that. Not like I'm advertising for them. I'm just saying that if any other government agency is looking to move in that direction, that they need to consider, like, identifying an organization that already exists and has some credibility with the entrepreneurial world and the investment community, because that's the other piece to it that usually government's missing.
I thank you, Kira. Couldn't have said it better. And on behalf of the whole established team, we're all blushing and saying thank you. So we've just about 10 minutes left here, and we've got a couple of questions from our viewers in the live stream. I'm going to go through a couple of those real quick. But if you have questions, please type them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer those. I thought this was an interesting one. It says this viewer said, "I think the running joke about projects going over budget and past deadline has a big impact on potential resources going towards innovators and startups." So my first question would be, is that true that other government projects going over budget, is that impacting the dollars that are going to innovators? And then are there ways that is being held accountable? That those people going over budget are being held accountable? I don't know if this is in the realm of expertise here.
A lot larger of a problem, but I'll try to break it down a little bit. There's about $3 billion of SBIR funding that goes to small business every year across all of government.
It's 3 billion with a B.
Yes.
Yeah.
And across NSF, NASA, Air Force, the rest of the DoD, right, there's money set aside to engage with small businesses. And as Kira has said, right, we have to take a different approach to this that we think is benefiting both small businesses and our own agencies.
Right.
And that's really what we've been doing, is how to transform how this money can be spent and just take a different look at it in conjunction, like it's fully legal, ready to go down this process. But yeah, there are definitely programs that go over budget, and there are definitely ways that we can work on improving that. But how we're going to show the institution that that's possible is by working with these small innovative companies that can deliver on time, that are able to showcase they have the best products and services. And just as you would in any market force, right, will trend to the most efficient and effective way over time. It isn't going to happen overnight that we'll end all these projects that go over budget and over scope, but we have to turn that ship in that direction.
Yes.
So I will say that the $3 billion that he's talking about, that is actually written into legislation for every federal agency. And so the question was, can someone who is over budget and over schedule, over their schedule and their budget, can they actually take money out of that is designated for small businesses? No, they cannot. So ultimately, it has to be found somewhere else. But when that budget's approved that fiscal year budget's approved, then SBIR has this amount. It's a percentage of the entire agency's budget. So, and it goes specifically for small businesses. So when there's a project or something that's over budget or whatever, behind their schedule, they're not allowed to touch that money from SBIR. Just so I think they were worried that money would be moved to actually help the person who's behind schedule. It does have to be found somewhere else, but it's not going to touch the SBIR fund. Just so that you guys.
And the other cool thing I've noticed in the Air Force is in almost 3 years we've been doing this, the amount of money that is moving towards projects in this space, the amount of the phase 3 contracts, which are funded solely from government entities, we're seeing a 10 to 100-fold increase in that, right? There was a $950 million IDIQ award to a company. There are companies that are scaling out their technology to all of the Air Force. And there's small sats, there's medical technologies, there's cyber platforms. The amount of money that is going into this space is increasing year by year. So we've leveraged almost another $250 million of other government funding just going to these projects.
Correct.
And that is just through one avenue. If you count our challenge process, the CSOs that are just happening in the Air Force, we're moving hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to work with these companies that are delivering. So I think the
NASA doesn't have that big of a budget as DoD does. So ours isn't hundreds of millions and billions. Ours is about 20 billion a year, but that's exactly right. We have other programs other than SBIR that invest in the development of technologies. And so when somebody has a budget that's specifically designated for this, it's very it's not typical that money would be pulled from to pay for somebody else's behind schedule, late schedule, over budget sort of plan. Mm-hmm. So the entrepreneur, if it was one of them that asked, tell them, don't worry, it's not they don't touch that. They don't touch those fundings.
And so the accountability for fraud and waste that's happening with bigger organizations is not really the realm here, right? It's just that what we're actually seeing is that maybe there's more dollars being put into the startup work. Sam, you've worked with you mentioned 3 agencies now, right? So not only the Air Force and NASA, but then NSF, you did an NSF work. Are you seeing more opportunities and more dollars coming from government agencies?
Sure. To clarify, we don't have a NASA contract, but we would love one.
Right. Sorry. Yeah.
We're aspiring. We'll see what the SBIR selection is on June 30th. I think two things. One, I think there's more interest. So, for example, NASA reached out to us. We're not on contract. We're just doing it in time to prototype on lockdown the NASA GSE hand pump ventilator, which is really cool. From the countries, and that's just like good faith all around. So it's cool that there's opportunities like that. And then on the funded side, I would say I think AFWorks, as Kira mentioned, has just knocked it out of the park and set the precedent for quickly iterating with those dollars. EPA is ramping up. There's some really cool things going on with EPA, and including a SBIR that came out this week. If you want to check that out. And even USDA. USDA right now has gone on to say, think of technology not only just in terms of what can support farmers, but how it can impact rural communities and capacity building. So a lot of non-traditionals, I think, are and maybe they've been doing it for years, but they're definitely using the framework that Kira and Joey have provided to message more, and they know how to target the startups. So we know about it. Here's a thing that's a little bit stinky. There's actually multiple ways you can find these SBIRs or SBIRs that we're talking about. And then there are the agency's own websites or portals that showcase other opportunities that we've pointed at. Like AFWorks has a webpage. You should, every Monday, that's what I do. Every Monday night, I go on the webpage and say, what's going on? Because things do change, right? I'm checking out what NASA's doing and not just in SBIRs. And then there's a DoD SBIR portal, and then kind of a search engine for everyone else. Sometimes things don't get posted. So just email me or our team or any one of us. We can send you a list of the websites we're checking and be really regular in going on it. The other thing I want to share is, and I didn't know this, we went to our NSF boot camp in phase 1 in DC, and we're chit-chatting with another company in line, and they mentioned their $100,000 match. And we're like, wait, what? And they're like, did you know every Puerto Rican company that gets a SBIR gets $100,000 from the Puerto Rican Science and Research Trust? Wow. If you get a phase 2, it's an extra $200,000. So I am immediately sending emails from DC, and I get back to PR, and we got another 100K we didn't even know about to work on printing some water bottles. So I would encourage you to not only look at the government money, but look at what they call the supplements right away, and also reach out to the state or the territory that you live in and find out what resources they have for small businesses, because there's a lot of really interesting pools of money that are standing up to augment some of these federal opportunities.
That's fantastic. Sam, why don't you send that list over to the established team, and we will send it out along with some additional links, some AFWorks links, some iTech links to the people who registered through Eventbrite.
So there's one called challenge.gov.
That's a good one.
And, I mentioned the Stevenson-Wilder Act. So there's a requirement underneath that act that they have to post all of their competitions on challenge.gov. So some of our NASA challenges are listed on there, so you could apply, but that's where you could actually apply and be awarded some funding. And then there's matching funding on there. So that's another government website, but it's under the Stevenson-Wilder Act, so that it's matching funds, meaning someone external as well as the government are putting together funds. So that's, Sam, you should add that to your list.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Good.
Just thinking.
Yep. Yeah. So we have time really for just one more question before we start to wrap here. This came from another live stream viewer. Have you seen any impact on the quality of SBIR, STTR, or Kira, in your case, for ITech proposals as you made the process easier, right? So as you're making the process easier to participate, are you seeing the quality of applications go up? And they gave as an example that NSF launched iCorp partly due to the quality challenges that they were having.
So for us, for NASA in particular, or for my NASA iTech program, when I went to stand it up, they said basically, you're not going to get anything of high quality in a 5-page white paper. And our first cycle that we held, NASA presented a paper last summer on the technology, because they're able to actually eliminate the biofilm that develops in our water filtration system on space station in a non-toxic way. And we've had space station, I don't know, about 30 years. We hadn't figured out a non-toxic solution. And this mom and daughter company comes along and they're able to figure out a solution. So the quality is absolutely there. It's there. And so that's what we've seen, is the quality of the technology, as well as, one of the things is I don't prescribe the solution. I kind of list the problem and say, hey, can you help me figure out a solution? So that's the other thing, because what if there's things we hadn't thought of?
Yeah.
Right? Brilliant people out there everywhere. So what if they've come up with something brilliant? So yeah, for us, I don't feel like the quality of the technologies have suffered. They've actually increased.
Great. Yeah.
I echo the same sentiment. We've seen double, triple increase in applications and 3 to 4 increase in awards. And the quality is phenomenal. The types of companies that we're getting and seeing through the program are great. Yeah. And we have a lot of education and training we can continue doing to increase that and help companies understand how to communicate. And that's something as AFWERX is going to scale and mature over the next couple of years, that's where our focus is going to be.
Yeah.
If it's helpful to, when you're looking at the SBIRs, some of them are on what we call like a calendar. So there's like a rotation, and that's why, companies were anticipating the cycle that got canceled with AFWERX, because they're really good about that hygiene of their release. But some of the agencies, NSF is an example. I think DOE, I might be mistaking, someone typed in live stream if I just did. It's either DOE or EPA as well. It's EPA. They have a rolling basis. And so you can submit just like a miniature paper similar to the white paper that Kira asked for iTech. And then they'll review it. Someone will review it and give feedback and say, okay, you're at the stage where we're doing the paperwork for NSF, it's a lot. For phase 1 is a good fit, or maybe you should work on these 2 things first. So because some of your solutions, for those that are listening might apply to more than one federal customer, and you use that opportunity to get that feedback. It's free, it's your tax dollars at work, and you can only grow and benefit from it. And then again, some of them now are rolling, so that means that you could apply at any point with the solution that you think could benefit the government agency, which is really neat.
Excellent. We had one question that just came in. I just want to throw this out there really quick, and so maybe Joe, you can throw us a real quick answer. So AFWERX SBIR does not connect accepted companies with target customers for the phase 2s, and consultants demand fees to share or to broker access. This seems like a critical failing. How is this being addressed?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We've inadvertently created a market to have folks get connected with Air Force customers. We actually do connect them through focus areas. So as our program has evolved, once a phase one company is on contract to help find your phase two customer, we have a list of focus areas that are saying, hey, here are problems that the Air Force wants to solve. We don't know what the solution is, but if you want to get connected, get engaged. And we've also found that through connecting through this process, going through our phase one education, connecting with organizations like the Defense Entrepreneurship Forum and others, there's an 80% success rate for those companies to find an Air Force customer. So while it is difficult, it's not super easy for those companies to figure out where to go. We found that an 80% success rate has been pretty effective. And we're going to continuously work on iterating that. Our phase one curriculum, the connecting with the small business consultants, the procurement technical assistance centers, we're facilitating and building that relationship a lot more, especially in the Air Force with program offices, with airmen. We're trying to build those connections continuousose. So we recognize that, hey, 80% is pretty good, but we want to do better, and we want to make that process a little bit easier for startups. So those are some of the things we're working on in the background. Are how do we build those connections? How do we share this list of information? How do we make it easier for companies to connect with potential customers? Our pitch day process, colliders, we're constantly increasing how we engage with that. And
Absolutely.
check out, we just did the FE Warren Collider with the established team. And it was a phenomenal way for companies to get introduced to airmen problems, potentially meet some customers. And it's been shown to be extremely effective.
Yeah, and make sure, I would say for the startups is make sure you're on the AFWorks email distro list. We have a distro list as well. If you go to afworks.us/startups, you can get it connected there. The colliders are amazing. It's a reverse pitch where airmen pitch their problems. And as phrased as, as the problem statements, like Kira said, this is like, we don't know what the solution is, but we know we need to see over the hill. So what do you got? And so the airmen pitch the problems, and then it gives the startups the opportunity to present that solution. But it's I know it's definitely an area of focus. Those focus areas are helping to alleviate that as well. Excellent. Well, boy, this was amazing. I could just keep talking with the three of you about this on and on, because we're passionate about this. I'm passionate about the work that we're doing here, that you all are doing. Thank you all for your dedication to your programs, to the country, to startups, and to moving everybody forward together. So we're on behalf of the established team, extremely grateful for your time today and for the work that you all do. And yeah, so let's smile for the camera. We'll take some pictures to share with social media. Everybody smile. Excellent. And if you are watching, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do live streams. Actually, I do a live stream every Friday. We live stream our events that we have coming up. We have a veterans focused pitch competition coming up. The deadline for that is today, I believe. And so make sure that if you have a veteran-led business, make sure that you are applying for our Veteran Startup of the Year Award. And we hope to see you all again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great panel. Really interesting stuff.
That was so good.
Thank you for joining us. It was great to see these organizations turning to startups to help solve these problems. It's, there's so many startup opportunities out there.
So thank you all for tuning in today. We hope to see you again on July 23rd. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Startup of the Year podcast, and our daily Deal Flow newsletter.
See you again soon. Please be safe out there and be well. Thank you.